Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Platformers live stream. And today we have a very special guest, Anton Weiss. Anton, how are you today?
I'm good. Actually, just came back from the first day of DevOps days here in Tel Aviv. We finally have this conference, and it feels great to connect with the community again, and to connect with your community. That's also special.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sorry, everyone that came in here and wanted to see Udi because Udi could not attend. So I'm very sorry for that. Um, so
Maybe you don't have to be sorry. Maybe some folks are saying, "Oh, finally not Udi anymore. Finally, we see Guy's pretty face."
hopefully. So I know that a few people are watching us on YouTube and also LinkedIn. We have a problem to connect to LinkedIn. I will try to fix it while we are on the fly. So just for people watching us on YouTube, and I will mention that a little bit after. If you do want to ask any questions, something that you want to ask Anton or myself or anyone, or just comment, just put it on the comments on YouTube, and we will see it here.
I would say
Cool, and
it's
I
on the right, on
amazing.
the left.
It's actually at the bottom, and I can see the people from LinkedIn were able to join. So, hello everyone from LinkedIn, and today we have a special guest, Anton. Um,
Yeah. Hello, dear platformers. How are you today? Okay. Are we ready? Then we can probably start with the slide sharing,
cool. I will
and I'll
share the
talk
screen.
about myself later on. Okay, so here we go. And I'll, first of all, as I said, I came back from DevOps days here in Tel Aviv, and it was themed around Halloween because Halloween is here around the corner. And that's why I'm wearing this. And in true spirit of Halloween, I want to start with this very grave announcement. Folks, platform engineering is dead. We can all go home. But
Oh,
what I actually mean is, no, seriously, I was at DevOps Days. I was at a couple more conferences in this last few months. And, nobody's talking about platform engineering anymore. And I think what this means is that platform engineering as a buzz, as a hype that was, initiated by some of the vendors in the industry is actually dead. And that's basically a good thing because it's Halloween, and also because we can finally, go back to our companies, go back to our workstations and continue building these platforms that we've been building for the last decade or even a couple of decades without the buzz. We can continue evolving the discipline of building internal delivery platforms without the hype interfering with us. Okay, and with that off our table, I want to say a few words about you. So, my assumption about you, the listener, that you're either here because you have built a platform and now you want to optimize it. And if that's true, please send a hand emoji to the session chat. Or maybe you are starting to build a platform, so you've already built a few things, but it's not, a final platform yet. Then send a chick emoji to the session chat. And or maybe you're just only thinking of building a platform and you've come here for advice, and that's also great. So please send an egg to the session chat. And the gist of this opening is that we're all at different stages of our platform journey, and that's great. By the way, that's great because this community was built for this, to connect all of us, the experts, the practitioners, the beginners, and huge kudos go to you, Guy, and to Udi for creating this community, and also thanks a lot for having me here. So we're all at different stages of maturity, and the stage we're currently at is it has a huge meaning, right? So it impacts outlook on this, and it will also impact probably your takeaways from my session, hopefully. Now, talking about maturity, there's the platform engineering maturity model. So if you know about the model, please send a plus or a like to the session chat. And if you haven't heard about it, so a few things. Well, this model was developed by some very smart folks in the CNCF platform engineering working group. And it basically defines 4 stages of platform maturity, going from provisional through operational and scalable to optimizing. And it measures this maturity across 5 aspects, them being, in whatever it says on the slide. Now, the thing with models is, as the saying goes, all models are wrong, but some are useful. And this model is definitely useful if you want to measure the maturity of your organization in the platform engineering effort. But it's also wrong. And I also like the second statement here by Norbert Wiener, the father of cybernetics, who said that the best material model for a cat is another or preferably the same cat. Yeah, so this gives us some indication about the truthfulness of any models. So the thing is, when we look at the model, it may be also very misleading because it looks like optimizing is just the last stage. And then it would probably mean to us that it's okay to delay the optimization until later. And also, while looking at investment, it says investment is just only one aspect. But in all truth, investment, actually, all of the aspects here can be seen as investment. So operations are definitely an investment in your platform, and the measurement is an investment. Even adoption can be seen as a type of an investment, right? So we need to take the model with a grain of salt. And going back to optimization, delaying optimization until later is actually very dangerous, because you can find it's probably too late for you to optimize at some stage. So there is also another saying that says that premature optimization is the root of all evil. I beg to differ. I think you can start optimizing from the get-go, especially if you're learning from the other people's mistakes. And there are things that can be optimized. Of course, you don't optimize everything, right? But there are things that can be optimized from the very beginning. And that's something that we'll be talking about. Okay. And in order to better understand what we're starting with, let's talk about how a platform actually evolves. So in the beginning, you probably, have a few things, maybe on your cloud infrastructure. And by the way, I like to say that if you're a small startup just starting out, just moving fast and breaking things, maybe your cloud provider is all the platform you need. You don't actually need to build a platform, right? But then maybe you decide to use Kubernetes, and maybe you add a few tools on top of that, and then maybe you create a deployment pipeline, be it in Jenkins, GitHub, whatever, and you add some observability. And then at a certain point, you find yourself with a lot of tools, and they all need to somehow talk to each other. And that creates a lot of complexity, and it starts bringing you down. And at a certain point, you start realizing that maybe this has become the foundation of a platform, and maybe you need to wrap it all in an API. And that's basically when the platform starts manifesting itself in a magical way out of the thin air, right? Now, when I talk to teams, I like to state a very simple fact. Building a platform, a delivery platform, is a business decision. It's an economical decision. It's not a technological decision. But on the other hand, we're all engineers. So we have this tendency to get bogged down in the technical detail. So when we talk about platform engineering, we say, I probably need to build an API. It's all about the API. And then others will come and say, no, we have to have a CLI because that's how engineers work. And maybe then still others will say, and they will say, to give our engineers a great experience, we need to have an internal delivery portal, right? and we probably need to customize backstage, or maybe we need to buy some vendor offering. And that's all good. That's all great. Again, platform engineering is an engineering discipline. It's been evolving for quite a long time. I actually tend to think that the best things, best books on platform engineering were all written about 10 years ago. Stuff like, the DevOps Handbook, or Google's SRE book, or even the Continuous Delivery book by Jez Humble and Dave Farley. They all bring very good foundations for building an internal delivery platform. So, but I say it's a business decision. So before we start engineering, we need to go back to why and understand, do we even need a platform, right? And in order to answer this question, we need to have a very good understanding of the investment we need to put into building the platform, and also of the value that we get back, the return on that investment, right? And I'm probably being Captain Obvious here. I'm stating the obvious, but I needed to state this because this is the whole premise of this talk. Okay, this is an empty slide to remind me to talk about myself. So who am I, and why am I qualified to talk about this? So I've been in the industry since the year 2000. I started as a software developer, building a search engine in C and C++. And then at a certain point, I found myself in this gray area between the development and the operations, automating some stuff. And I've been doing this for about 5 years with no name for that function. And then Patrick Dubois came around and said, what you're doing is called DevOps. And that's what I've been doing ever since as a consultant. Now, at a certain point, of course, I started doing cloud native stuff, and Kubernetes came out, and I get very excited because it's such a great foundation for building smart distributed software systems. Now, being a smart system for building complex system, it's very complex in itself. And that's why when PerfectScale, the company I currently work with, came to me and said, we'd like you to work with us, I said, yeah, that's a perfect fit, because that's what I've been doing. I've been, helping engineering teams to work together. I've been optimizing software delivery. I've been talking about how any complex system has to have continuous optimization, because otherwise, entropy is creeping in, and we can call it anything you like. You can call it technical debt, you can call it configuration drift, you can call it bit rot. It just appears, and if you don't do anything, if you don't optimize, if you don't continuously remove and pay back the technical debt, then the system will slowly deteriorate. I've seen this for all kinds of systems I've been building, and the same thing happens in Kubernetes. So what PerfectScale does is continuously optimizing Kubernetes clusters. And yes, Kubernetes needs that too. So it's all about continuous optimization. As I said, it's never too early to optimize. And yes, it can be sometimes too late to optimize.
I have a question.
A question.
I have a question, sure. if I can interrupt, because when we talk about platform, it's you're right. Like, we need to optimize something. Like, do you think it's more like continuous optimization in terms of doing like very small step to optimize, or this is like, okay, we are in too much of a drift or too much back, and now we need to take this huge step forward? Is this the platform initiative more of small steps, or something that is huge and big? And if you're going to answer that later in the session, that's...
Yeah, I think I have answers to that. Thinly spread all around the pitch, but in general, it's a very good question. I think one grand change is something that I've never seen working, right? So basically, it's usually this iterative, and the whole idea of building platform as a product. It comes down to this, right? You don't build a product no one needs. In the same way, you don't build a platform nobody needs, right? And therefore you need to build stuff, and then you need to check yourself. Am I building the correct thing? Am I building the right thing? So yes, it is baby steps. And that's basically what I'm talking about here. I'm saying, in order to understand what's the value you get out of your system, you need to be asking these whys, the platform whys. So why am I building this? Because you may say, I need to build a platform because I'm getting slowed down by the complexity of my infrastructure. So I'm building a platform in order to enable speed of delivery. I don't know, my current deployment process takes a week, because since we release a version and until it runs in production, and I want to get this down to a day because I'm too slow. Or you may say, I need a platform because my system is too complex and stuff is crashing, and I'm having a hard time to troubleshoot all this, so I'm investing into platform because I want reliability. Or you can say, our system is very popular, and that's great. We have lots of customers, but we have these peaks, and then suddenly we don't have enough performance. So we need to build scaling into the system and make it part of a platform and make that easily usable for engineers. Or you may say, I'm building a platform because I want to optimize the costs, because we've been moving fast and breaking things, and we gave our engineers carte blanche to all of the cloud resources, but they've been building uncontrollably and leaving stuff running for weeks and months, and now we're paying too much, right? And we want to have control, so we need to somehow create these enabling constraints. In platform engineering, we talk a lot about enabling constraints. Or maybe we're building a platform because we want experience, right? So in platform engineering, we talk a lot about developer experience. I don't like that. I'm saying, developers are just part of the game, because I come from the old school DevOps, where we're saying developers and ops, they're equal, so we need to cater to everybody's experience. So I like to talk about it as engineering experience for all of the engineers, and even not only engineers in the company. Or maybe we're building a platform for security, because that's also important, because we need to comply. Or maybe because we had a data breach and it still hurts a lot, and that that pain is what instructs our platform effort. Or maybe we're building a platform because we want better communication between engineers, because we realize there's Conway's law, and it's been proven time after time that the patterns of communication in our organization get reflected in the system that we're building. So if we don't provide good enough tools for our engineers to communicate, then the system will also be too complex and too slow and too cumbersome. So there could be lots of reasons, lots of whys that you will find there, right? And of course, we usually say, yeah, we want them all. But there are trade-offs, because some of these concerns here can be conflicting, like reliability and performance and cost. They're all conflicting interests, and we know this very well from our practice in PerfectScale. Again, cost optimization. Like, we realize that in many cases, companies or engineers, they're over provisioning their cloud resources because they want to get more reliability, because they realize that there is this risk of not giving enough resources, and then the system will fail because they will be out of memories, there will be throttling. But on the other hand, most of Kubernetes clusters that we look at, they're both over provisioned and have reliability issues at the same time, right? So there are trade-offs all around. Anybody who looks at software architecture knows that. And of course, we still want it all. But what can we do? We need to focus on something, right? We cannot cover all of the bases. And if we try, then we'll probably find ourselves naked in the end. So here's an exercise that I suggest we all do, and I can call this an exercise in humility. So let's, like, if you're already building a platform or only planning, or you're planning a new platform feature, so sit down and write down the expected platform values. You can use the list on my previous slide, or you can create your own. You can add your own value points, right? Then try to prioritize. Try to understand what's the most important thing on your list right now. Because yes, we want it all, but some things are more important than others. And then try and evaluate each part of your existing or planned platform features according to that list, right? And try to understand what's the expected value there, and also what's the investment that you need to put into that. So, like, for example, I don't know, you're saying, I want to improve adoption. Okay. And of course, what you need for that is we need measurement. And like for each why, for each kind of value in the platform, there will be different metric. And I actually had a couple of talks on that, and it was a long time ago, long before the platform engineering buzz, when we were talking about, how do we measure the value of DevOps initiatives? And it's more or less still the same. So, like, for speed of delivery, you can go with good old cycle time. And for example, how do you measure adoption, right? Then you have that adoption rate, right? So how many of engineers or teams in our company are using that, right? And for reliability, you can use the mean time to resolving issues, or incident rate. So an example for this, maybe, for example, I don't know, you're saying, I've built this new deployment pipeline, and I wanted to have a higher adoption rate, because when you only build it, nobody's using it, so its adoption rate is 0. And we, of course, we've built this generic deployment pipeline, for example, that could be used for multiple components in the organization. So we're saying we want to get to, I don't know, 80% adoption. And you're saying, okay, I'll make this more usable. Maybe I'll provide better, more sensible defaults, or maybe I'll integrate this straight into the IDE, and that will probably give me better adoption rate. So I don't know, right now, maybe only 1 team out of 10 is using it. So then the adoption rate is what? 10%, right? And I'm saying, if I build this into the IDE and I enable my engineers to use it in an easier way, then it will probably get the adoption rate to 50%. And then I can probably, do this over the course. Like, I'll need to invest, I don't know, 30 engineering days into that, and that will give me an adoption rate of 50 in 2 months. So suddenly you have the data. Suddenly you have something to refer to, and you can check yourself on whether you're building the right thing. And you can start optimizing, because if you're seeing that you're not getting the expected return, or maybe you're getting a better than you expected return, right? That means you're doing something right, or maybe you're doing something wrong. Okay, now, for example, this adoption example is very complex, because adoption is a sneaky subject, right? It's hard to measure, and adoption rate that I was talking about here, it's not that easy. What if some engineers use it, but they only use it 1 out of 3 times that they go into the system? I don't know. It's sneaky, and it's also very much based on sentiment, and sometimes, it depends on how much political influence you have in a company, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there are other things that are easier to optimize and easier to measure. Like, there are things that can be, there's that low-hanging fruit that's already there, that other people have built or other people have done, and you can easily adopt. Like, you can easily, for example, optimize your container images, right? Use the distroless images as your base, and you've optimized something here. You optimize the storage without paying a lot for that. Or I don't know, you can optimize your instance selections, or you can do pod right sizing in an easier automated way by buying a vendor offering, for example. That's another shameless plug for PerfectScale, right? So automate what we can, buy what can be bought, right? And that's another way to optimize right from the get-go. Now I realize that I may sound a bit unrealistic to some folks here, because saying sit down, write down all of the value that you're getting out of this feature, and then add all these measurements and start measuring your cycle time, and that's all great in theory, but we're all under stress, we all need to deliver, we all have production incidents to take care of, right? And
Yeah, we are also
if you're living,
engineers.
yeah, and if you're living in a war zone like me and you, Guy, then you have additional stress on your shoulders. So you don't really have time to think, what is the thing I'm doing, right? You need to build stuff. You need to put out fires, and that means that you'll make mistakes, right? Yes, once in a while you'll build stuff that nobody actually wants to use. Once in a while you'll assume you'll get some value out of that new platform feature, and you won't get that value, and that's okay. The important thing here is, of course, to again evaluate what that thing we did, how much value it provided, and learn from our mistakes and try not to make the same mistakes. And there's also the saying that smart people learn from their mistakes, while wise people, they learn from mistakes of others. So this is my invitation to you: learn from my mistakes, learn from other folks in the community mistakes, and that's what we're here for. And again, kudos to all the folks who are making this community possible. And you can pat yourself on the shoulder for being here, because I think this is the best foundation for building a great platform that you could be investing into. Invest into learning, invest into understanding what's that thing we're doing, invest into evolving this platform engineering discipline, because it's still in process of becoming better. So with that, I want to summarize. So first of all, always remember, building a platform is a business decision, not a technological one. Yes, there are technological decisions to take on the way to that success, right? But the driver is always the value, and we also need to have a very good understanding of the investment. So for that, we need to ask the platform whys. We need to prioritize the whys, prioritize our expectations, measure the investments and the outcomes, automate what can be automated, and buy what can be bought. When faced with this, build over buy decision, always prioritize for buying if buying is easier, and if it's a lesser investment and provides more value. That's basically easy. Maybe there's a little remark there. Yeah, sometimes building is great when it provides learning. Okay, so if learning is what you want to optimize your platform for, and that's also value you get out of platform, right? Then definitely build. And back to learning. Learn from your own mistakes that you will inevitably make. Learn from the mistakes of others. Join communities for that. Talk to other people. Learn from what other people do. And remember that platform engineering is dead, and that's a good thing. Happy Halloween to you all.
Yeah, I think I would like to you said something about breaking stuff and failing and all of that about mistakes, and I think something that is crucial to understand and implement is how much can you make mistakes, because people, like I asked you previous question about taking a big step, and always when you take a big step you put a lot of risks and you gamble on a lot of credibility as an organization, time of people, maybe money on that. But when you take small steps and you know what is the why, you just need to adjust the steps into the right direction. It's much easier, even if you are failing with some.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. Like, as we said, you usually, first of all, you find with yourself with a platform on your hands, as in that story that I told. Yeah, you start with a few tools, and then at a certain point you say, okay, this is my platform. Okay, now what do I do next? And then there is that, like, initial investment that may be a large investment, like saying, I want to provide a universal API to rule it all, or maybe, establishing an internal portal or a software catalog. That's a large investment that you still need to make. And but it's very important to minimize the investment, so that you can measure the value, and you can have the metrics in place that will direct your decisions further along the way.
Amazing, amazing. And one last question before we are done. Like, I wanted to know, like, what do you think would be, I know, to like alternatives to big steps that you heard from the community or heard from your experience that are more positives direction or negative direction? I know, whatever you feel like there are, if you have any. It's a
Like,
tough one.
you mean some examples of, maybe some failure
Yeah,
story?
yeah. For example, let's say like solving. I saw a few failed initiative to build a platform or to build a portal to the organization when they try to solve a very a very hard task to achieve, but someone need to do this task, I know, once every few weeks or once a month. And instead of creating an automation or just doing that, they invested so much resources in putting their an automation and a portal and created a lot of really cool stuff, but no one actually using them because it's,
Mhm.
I wouldn't call it a one-shot problem, but it's not many, like a problem that's worth solving. And then your stakeholder inside the organization don't want to use it, the developers don't want to use it, and you fail. If you have any tip,
Well,
a good
uh,
lesson or bad
first
lesson
of all,
from that.
I can totally relate, and I've seen this too. I've spent the previous year trying to build a startup around internal developer portals, specifically around Backstage, and we've talked to lots of folks who've built Backstage and failed in the adoption stage, and we've also got some insight into why this happens, and it's very close to what you're describing here. So some of this comes from this design by committee phenomenon. So basically, they decide to establish a portal, and then the developers won't have their say, and the ops won't have their say, and there are other, like, political forces inside the company, and like they are saying, no, we don't want this if this doesn't have that functionality, and we don't want this if this doesn't support, I don't know, seeing the metrics, and we don't want this if, and then you find yourself with with a very large spec of things that need to be in there, and you go into building this, and then in the end nobody's using it because we had some assumptions regarding about what we need, but the assumptions were wrong.
Yeah.
So yes, I think limiting the scope is a very valid advice that wasn't there on the slides, and thanks for that input.
No, it's totally fine. So, um, any last words before we are ending the session?
Uh, I'd love to hear back from the folks on the call, like, if this resonated with anyone, if it helped in any way, if you think this was all nonsense and I'm full of shit, any kind of feedback. Because that's the problem with with virtual sessions. We don't get that immediacy of the feedback, and it's the same thing with platform, and the same thing with lots of scope. The longer you don't have the feedback, the more is the chance that you're building the wrong thing. So I don't want to be delivering the wrong thing. So yes, please reach out. You can find me on Twitter as Anton Weiss. I should have probably put this on the slides, but we can probably put this in the comments on LinkedIn or somewhere else. And you can find me on LinkedIn. And also, there's the community website. I can probably put something there, maybe the slides, and you can definitely comment on my slides.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Anton. Happy Halloween. Platform engineering is dead. You're right. Go, go, go.
Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for watching. And if you want to ask anything, as Anton said, and you can also comment on the videos and we will share that with Anton. So thank you everyone for watching, and join us next week for another stream. Bye-bye.
Yep. I'm sure it'll be great. Thanks, Guy, for having me.